here at the Korg stand at NAMM 2019 with the Korg Volca Modular, which is the newest addition to the Korg Volca lineup of portable, affordable, and compact groovebox style synths, each having their own separate function. And this time it's modular. It's a fully analog, semi-modular West Coast style synthesizer, which is really the most affordable and easiest way for new users to modular to begin learning how to create their own patches and create their own sounds on a modular synthesizer. You have 8 separate modules that are built into the Volca Modular's front panel with 50 patch points using these pin header patch cables. And then of course you have 20 patch cables included, which allows you to change the signal path and route modulation information anywhere on Volca Modular. So it's a really, really fun way to learn modular. And it's also a super cool tool because West Coast modular synthesizers traditionally have been pretty expensive and hard to get a hold of. So this kind of puts West Coast modular into the hands of the masses. So I have a couple of things patched up right here. The first is the second function, which is a free running function, can be looped to create an LFO. So I have the end of cycle trigger output going to the beginning of cycle trigger input, and then I take the output of that modulation information and go, for example, into the ratio of modular frequency to carrier frequency on the source oscillator. And then if I turn up the modulation amount, you'll hear that. And then if I want to run a sequence and have some sample and hold going, I have something called the woggle, which allows me to take random source voltages and sample them at different frequencies and then bring them into my source oscillator as modulation information. So that's sampling every time it plays a note, but I also have divisions on the clock here. So if I take every third step, I'm going to sample a different voltage and have a different modulation value every third step. I take the divided by 3 output of the clock and go into the trigger input on the woggle, kind of like triggering the sample and hold, and I also have some sequencing features like scales and randomized sequencing and randomized tuning. So if I change the tuning of this, and then I can add in some randomization using the stochastic sequencer. And then of course there's a space out, which is a stereo modulated reverb, which is really nice for adding a little bit of dynamic space to your sound. But it can also be modulated. So let's take that LFO we created by looping the function earlier and go into the space out modulation input. And now our space out is going to be modulating at the speed of that LFO. There you go. So all of the Volcas feature something called sync in and out. So if I have a drum machine Volca over here and I want the Volca Modular to play in time with that, I can take the sync out signal and send that into the sync in port on the Volca Modular, and those will play in time, and then I can daisy chain that tempo signal to the next Volca in my chain. I have a Volca mix here which acts as a master clock and is actually clocking all 3 of these other Volcas in this display right now. So unlike some of the other Volcas, Volca Modular doesn't have a 5-pin MIDI port. We instead opted to use CV in, which is an 1/8" jack, which is a stereo input that takes CV and gate on a stereo 1/8" plug, and then it splits that out into 2 patch points, which are converted by Volca Modular into its internal voltage. So this can be controlled by a CV gate controller from for example, your Eurorack sequencer or a CV gate output keyboard. So it's going to be $199 US, and it's going to be shipping very, very soon right after NAMM.